This lesson is designed for Cambridge IGCSE curriculum, subject Environmental Management, Unit 3, Agriculture and the Environment. Topic the soil, the learning objective to examine the formation of soil, the importance of soil structure and the soil texture. A learning outcome. By the end of the lesson, the learners will be able to compare the characteristics of clay soil with sandy soil in context to the features of soil. What is soil? Soil is the topmost layer of the earth crust, or the soil is the loose material on the earth crust. In other words, soil is a mixture of organic matter, minerals, gases, living organisms, and water. The four components of soil are organic matter, humus, air, water. The organic matter consists of living plants, animals, microorganisms, and dead remains. Humus is the material left after soil organisms have partially decomposed organic matter. Air, which is need within the spaces, that is a pause between the particles and organic content of the soil. Water, which is also held within the soil pores. So the proportion of each of these four components vary depending on the type of soil, local climatic conditions, and size of the mineral particles. Where do soil components come from? The soils are formed from the weathering and erosion of the parent rock. These rocks gradually broken into smaller pieces. This process is known as weathering. The weathered materials are carried away by the different agents of erosion at different seasons. So the wearing away of landscape by the different agents of erosion, that process is called as erosion. The breaking up of rocks into smaller pieces is called as the weathering. There are three types of weathering. Physical weathering. The physical weathering is caused by the physical process such as changes in the temperature, freeze thaw, and the impact of wind, rain, and waves. When you talk about the temperature changes, when a rock gets hot, it expands. When it gets cold, the rock contracts. It develops cracks and eventually it breaks into smaller pieces. And it's more common in the desert areas. When you talk about the freeze thaw weathering, the freeze thaw is the water expands and freezes within the crack in the rocks. Eventually, it breaks the rocks. Glacier are also a causes of weathering. Chemical weathering. Chemical weathering is caused by the carbon dioxide in the air combining with water to form weak acid, that is carbonic acid. Minerals in the rocks react with the rainwater, causing the rock to be withered. Acid rain caused by the pollution is another agent of chemical weathering. Chemical weathering also occurs when the iron in the rock oxidize or rust. The last type of weathering is biological weathering. Biological weathering is caused by the animals and the plants. For example, rabbits, other burrowing animals, can burrow into a crack in a rock, making it bigger and splitting the rock. You may even see weeds growing through cracks in the pavement on the countryside. You can even see the bushes or trees growing from cracks in rocks and or in the dilapidated buildings. As they grow bigger, the roots push open the cracks and make them wider and deeper. Eventually, pieces of rocks may fall away. Now let's have a look at the soil composition. We already have a look at the four main components of soil: the organic matter, mineral matter, water, and air. So all the soils are composed of these four elements. The percentage of these different constituents vary greatly from one soil to another. The largest proportion of soil is made up of mineral matter, mainly sand and clay. Organic material, though only in a small proportion, but it is very important. About half of the soil by the volume is not solid at all. It is made up of air and water in roughly equal parts, although the percentage keep changing depending on the weather. During the wet season, the proportion of water increases to fill what where the air spaces during the dry season. So mineral particles are formed by weathering of rock that lies below the soil. For example, the hard minerals quartz, the soft minerals mica and feldspar. Due to weathering, the quartz break into a sand and silt. On the other hand, mica and feldspar are break into or form into clay. Now we can see how the soil is classified based on the particle size. The size of soil particle is important. It determines how quickly a water passes through a soil, and how much water it can retain depends on the amount of free space between the particles. The classification of soil particles are three. They are sand, silt, and clay. So here sand is the largest mineral component. The size of particles, large size, do not pair together easily. Silt particles are smaller than those of sand and feels silky, soapy to touch. And the clay is, the clay particles are the smallest mineral component. Their small size means they are closely together, which reduces the ability of water to drain through the soil. Now let's go to the soil structure and soil texture. First, let's see about the soil texture. Soil texture is determined by the a relative percentage of sand, silt, and clay in the soil. That's a soil with a finest texture is clay soil. Soil with a coarse texture is a sandy soil. Soil with a 90 percentage or more high percentage of sand is the sandy texture. 45% of the clay is clay texture, and loamy soil have the sand, silt, and clay are evenly distributed. When you talk about the soil structure, the soil structure is the arrangement of soil particles into aggregates of various sizes and shapes. The soil texture determines soil water holding capacity, permeability, and soil workability. Sand, silt, clay, and organic matter particles in a soil combine with one another to form larger particles. Now we can see why the soil texture is important for farming or agriculture. Soil texture is important because it it affects many factors which influence plant growth and farming. First, we will see about the pore space. Pores are the gaps or spaces between the mineral particles. In sandy soils, these are there are large pores. There is a space between the individual grains, whereas in clay soil, pore spaces are very small. So when you talk about the aerations, the amount of air present in the soil is called as aeration. In sandy soil, the large pores hold air, whereas in clay, air is usually excluded from the tiny pore spaces. The next is the drainage. Amount of water trapped in the pore space, that is called as the drainage. Sandy soils do not hold water, and rainwater drains freely through the soil. Water is trapped in clay soil, and new rainwater cannot flow freely to the clay soil. About the nutrients, that the nutrients are the ability of the soil to supply nutrients to the plants. Nutrients are in short supply in sandy soil. On the other hand, clay soils are nutrient rich. The last one is ease of use. That is how easily they can be plowed and cultivated. Light sandy and loamy soil are easily to work. Clay soils are difficult to break up even with heavy metal plows. So try to answer the given question. That is, list the difference between the sandy and clay soil in relation with the features of pore space, aeration, drainage, water, and ease of cultivation. And in the next lesson, we will be learning the soil for the plant growth.